On the rugged coast of Maine, as the golden sun sets over Portland's eastern promenade, a father and son walk along the waterfront, unaware that fate is about to change their lives forever. A fleeting moment, a pair of unforgettable eyes, and a past thought lost to time collide in an unexpected reunion. This is a story of second chances, of love that never fades, and of finding the way home, even when the road seems impossible. The late afternoon sun painted the sky in hues of amber and gold as Matthew Crawford strolled along Portland's eastern promenade, watching his son, Dylan, race ahead on his scooter. The waterfront path was alive with families savoring the crisp spring air. Waves from Casco Bay lapped gently against the shore, while seagulls circled above, their sharp eyes scanning for forgotten snacks. "Keep it slow, buddy," Matthew called out, though his mind was elsewhere. Dylan zipped past a couple walking their golden retriever, his blue jacket flapping in the breeze. "Dad, look how fast I can go!" the boy shouted excitedly. Matthew smiled, but his thoughts drifted to Eleanor Sullivan, the woman who had shaped his life in ways few ever knew. She wasn't his biological mother, though people often mistook them for being related. They shared the same quiet demeanor, the same thoughtful way of speaking, even similar mannerisms when deep in conversation. Everything he had achieved in life, he owed to her. "Can I go up to the bend, Dad?" Dylan called, already halfway there. "Stay where I can see you," Matthew replied, adjusting his leather jacket against the cooling evening air. The sun was setting, casting brilliant oranges and pinks across the sky, their reflections dancing on the windows of the historic brick buildings lining the waterfront. His phone buzzed, a message from Eleanor about Sunday dinner. He quickly replied, promising to bring Dylan's favorite apple pie from the bakery on Congress Street. No matter how busy his real estate development company kept him, he never missed Sunday dinner at Eleanor's Victorian home on the Eastern Promenade. "5 more minutes, buddy," he called out, watching Dylan weave in and out of the path near the waterfront railing. As Matthew inhaled the salty ocean air, mingled with the aroma of fried clams from the seafood shacks along Commercial Street, his thoughts drifted back to the night his life changed forever. 15 years ago, a 16-year-old Matthew lay crumpled on the cold pavement of a dark Portland street. Every breath sent sharp pain through his ribs. The men he had tried to steal from had not shown mercy. "That'll teach you to keep your hands to yourself, street rat," one of them had spat before delivering another brutal kick to his bruised body. The December wind cut through his thin jacket like a blade. Steam curled up from a manhole cover, creating ghostly shapes in the dim glow of the street lamp. He tasted blood and felt his left eye swelling shut. He knew he needed to find shelter before the temperature dropped further, but he couldn't move. Then a voice cut through the quiet. "Can you stand?" The voice was gentle yet firm. Matthew hadn't heard anyone approach. He turned his head slightly, squinting against the pain. A woman stood above him, silhouetted by the streetlight, her breath visible in the cold air. "Leave me alone," he muttered. "I'm fine." "You're clearly not fine," she replied, kneeling beside him. Her eyes, filled with sadness, carried a weight of pain that somehow matched his own. "Should I call an ambulance?" "No hospitals," he mumbled, shaking his head. "They'll call the cops." The woman, Eleanor, though he didn't know her name then, studied him for a long moment. There was no pity in her expression, no disgust. Instead, there was something else, something he couldn't name. "My house is 3 blocks away," she said finally. "If you can walk with my help, you can crash on my couch tonight. We'll figure out the rest tomorrow." Matthew hesitated. His street instinct screamed that this was too good to be true. "Why would you help me?" he asked. "Because you need it," she answered simply, already pulling his arm over her shoulder. "And because everyone deserves a chance." Now, as Matthew stood watching his son at the waterfront, he was pulled from his thoughts by a cry of panic. "Dad, I can't stop!" Dylan's scooter hit a steep incline at full speed, wheels rattling against the uneven pavement. His small hands gripped the handlebars, his face stricken with terror. The bottom of the hill ended in a sharp turn near the water's edge. Matthew sprinted forward, his heart pounding, but he was too far away. Then out of nowhere, a young woman dashed into Dylan's path. Bracing herself, she caught him just before he collided with the railing, pulling him to safety as the scooter crashed with a metallic clang. "I've got you," she said gently, holding the trembling boy. "You're okay now." Matthew reached them seconds later, dropping to his knees. "Dylan, are you hurt?" The boy sniffled, still clinging to the woman. "She caught me, Dad. She saved me." Matthew turned to thank the stranger, but the words caught in his throat. Her clothes were threadbare, her dark hair tangled, but it was her eyes that stopped him cold. One brown, one light hazel, just like the photograph on Eleanor's desk. "Thank you," he managed, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm Matthew Crawford, and this is Dylan." The woman shifted uncomfortably. "Lucy," she replied warily, wincing as she stood, her arms scraped raw from the rescue. Matthew scribbled an address on a piece of paper and handed it to her. "If you ever need anything," he said carefully, "this is where you can find us." Lucy hesitated before taking it. Matthew watched as she read the note, her brow furrowed in confusion. As he and Dylan walked away, Matthew silently prayed she would come, that she would take this chance. Later that night, the doorbell rang at Eleanor's house. She rose from her armchair, marking her place in her book. Matthew, waiting in the kitchen, felt his pulse quicken. When Eleanor opened the door, her sharp intake of breath was audible. "Oh my God," she whispered. Lucy lay crumpled on the doorstep, fever burning in her cheeks. Eleanor rushed to her side, brushing tangled hair from her face. And then she saw them. One brown eye, one light hazel. Her hands trembled. "Matthew," she whispered. "Her eyes?" "I know," he said softly, lifting Lucy in his arms. "I saw them at the park. That's why I gave her our address." As Eleanor tended to the unconscious girl, memories surged back. Memories of a little girl lost at a festival, a husband who died searching for her, and a mother who never stopped hoping. Now, after 16 long years, that hope had finally led her home. By morning, Lucy awoke to the warm glow of Eleanor's guest room. Her fever had broken, but her eyes were filled with tears. "I was dreaming about my mother," she whispered. "She used to call me her little Sonny." Eleanor's breath hitched. "My little sunshine," she choked out, "because your smile could light up the darkest day." Lucy stared at her, realization dawning. And then, in a broken sob, she whispered the word Eleanor had waited 16 years to hear. "Mama?" With a trembling smile, Eleanor pulled her daughter into her arms. Finally, after so many years of searching, they were home.